So the Sacramento Kings are a young, fun team. I don't really believe are title contenders. I don't. Could they like surprise somebody in the playoffs? Sure. They don't really play defense. They're a high-powered offense. Their goal is to basically kind of outscore you. They have been a little better in spots defensively than they were last year, but overall, I just don't think that they play well enough on both sides to warrant an NBA championship. And then there's the questions of Sabonis when he seems to disappear in the playoffs at times. But Sacramento is currently on a 6-game win streak, sitting at 8-4 on the season. And personally, I think that they're a team that should just kind of stand pat, right? Like, if you're going to make a trade, it has to be the right one, right? If you can make an impact trade for let's say a Joel Embiid becomes available, right? Then yeah, you go make a move for that. Again, just using that as an example, or some quality player that could maybe change the landscape for the Kings. Then I think you make that move. But if you're getting a guy such as a Zach Lavine, who supposedly Sacramento is one of the teams to look out for Zach Lavine. He would be interested in Sacramento, and Sacramento was interested in Zach Lavine and even made him an offer sheet several years ago. That was before the new regime, but I just don't think Zach Lavine makes any sense at all for the Sacramento Kings, right? Obviously, when he's on, he can score with the best of them. The guy is absolute lights out when he's on. Doesn't really play defense. He could fit into the offensive schemes and kind of give Sacramento that consistent go-to scorer that give you a 20-plus a game, maybe take some pressure off of a De'Aaron Fox. And it would be kind of interesting to see you kind of run your offense through Sabonis with De'Aaron Fox and then Zach Lavine, and just Zach Lavine's athleticism, his quickness, ability to continuously apply rim pressure with him and De'Aaron Fox. I mean, good luck to bigs trying to protect the paint, right? I mean, that would just be an onslaught. Problem is that I think he would be in a lot of ways counterproductive for Sacramento, right? Like, you've seen De'Aaron Fox and his growth and his development and what he does for Sacramento. I just think Zach Lavine gives you like a lesser version of that, right? More offensive oriented. De'Aaron Fox is more of like a scoring guard than he is more of a traditional point guard. But still, like, I just feel like when you talk about Zach Lavine, yes, he can get downhill. He could potentially make things easier, but I think you'd fall into this trap of a lot of you go, I go, which isn't usually a recipe for success, right? We've seen that with the Bulls and Zach Lavine and DeMar DeRozan at times. And the Sacramento Kings like that free-flowing, right? You have Mike Brown, who comes from the Warriors tree and is implementing that Warrior style of offense and this fast-paced, push the pace, run and gun type offense. I definitely think Zach Lavine could fit into that, right? Because again, he's quick. He can get up and down the court rather easily and just gives you that explosiveness that you get with De'Aaron Fox. But I feel like De'Aaron Fox and Zach Lavine would kind of be counterproductive, right? I think when they're both on, good luck, right? But I just think more times than not, there would be this fine line in finding this balance, right? De'Aaron Fox is also one of the best fourth quarter players, one of the best closers and clutch players in the league. So when you get towards the end of games, if games are close, you run the risk of Zach Lavine now taking shots that maybe De'Aaron Fox should be taking just because De'Aaron Fox is been the best at it, right? I mean, the guy's been ridiculous when you're talking about just finishing, closing games, fourth quarter scoring. Just don't think you can justify taking the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands and now putting it into Zach Lavine's hands. And sure, could they find a proper balance? Possibly. You could make the argument, well, now De'Aaron Fox doesn't have to work as hard in the fourth quarter. Now he doesn't have to do everything and carry the offensive workload in the fourth quarter. But you have what works, right? And it's just, I just feel like you'd be asking De'Aaron Fox, who is your franchise guy, who has been the best at it, to now kind of do less of that, right? And it's like, well, why? Like, when when I'm able to close down the stretch, I'm able to hit the big shots, I'm able to be a league leader in fourth quarter and scoring. Where Zach Lavine, it's like, what about I just feel like there's too much redundancy, right? And I think if you're Sacramento, you're on the right track here, right? Everyone on your roster is still young enough, at least the core guys are still young enough to where you can continue to grow, continue to build, kind of take your lumps. You lost in the first round last year. Maybe you'll lose in the second round this year. Kind of go the OKC approach, right? If OKC didn't decide to blow it up and tear it down. But you saw them year after year, right? They go from not being a playoff team to all of a sudden their first round, all of a sudden their second round, all of a sudden they're in the conference finals, then they're in the NBA finals. And it was like, okay, this is a team that looks like they can win an NBA championship. But then OKC made the mistake of letting James Harden go, where I think if you're Sacramento, you stick with the guys, you allow them to take their lumps. You allow them, Sabonis to be bad in a couple playoff series. And I get it's frustrating and whatnot. But I think ultimately you continue and stick to the path that you're on and wait patiently for that guy that can come in and make sense. You got your kind of go-to scorer. If you could upgrade like the Harrison Barnes spot, I think that would be great. Go get like a 3-and-D style wing, right? Like Siakam, I think would make more sense for Sacramento, right? If Sacramento, if the Toronto Raptors would eventually decide like, hey, we need to change things up here, it's not working, right? If I was Sacramento, I would go after Siakam because then that kind of gives you that point forward. He's a guy that can kind of be a Swiss Army knife, do a little bit of everything, would make your defense better, right? I think you need to kind of go get, not necessarily a superstar. Obviously, again, like I mentioned, if you can go get a Joel Embiid or something like that, then sure, go do that. But if you're looking for a guy that's just going to maybe slightly move the needle, because again, I don't know how much Zach Lavine makes the Kings better. Like, I don't. Like, he might make them slightly better. He might make them much better, right? Maybe De'Aaron Fox and Zach Lavine with Sabonis, maybe that works just seamlessly, and they're terrifying. It's always a possibility. But I think more likely than not, you're going to have this just redundancy that's just going to, it's kind of going to be a maybe slightly better Chicago team where you saw when things were clicking for Chicago, they were good, but they weren't really a contender. It was like, okay, they're a team that's going to make the playoffs. They're going to be great in the regular season. Obviously, Lonzo went down and whatnot. But that first year that they all got together, it looked like, okay, this could be a team that could make some noise in the playoffs. But I don't think anyone really thought they were a contender. That's kind of how I feel about Zach Lavine with Sacramento, right? Like, if you get Zach Lavine and you move him to Sac, I don't think that all of a sudden it's like, oh, that was the piece. There you go. That's the piece that makes them a title contender. Because Zach Lavine, I mean, where does he rank? He's not a top 10 player. He's not a top 15 player. I don't believe he's a top 20 player. Maybe a top 25. I think you could argue otherwise. Top 30, right? So, like, again, you're going to give up because he has $40 million in salary. So you're talking about trading a guy that you're going to have to match $40 million in salary. He's making basically superstar money, and you're going to bring him in and try to have him fit alongside a guy that is very similar. I mean, they are different players in De'Aaron Fox and Zach Lavine, but they both have a lot of, like, they rely on their athleticism, their speed, getting to the rim, they can hit shots, all that stuff. I just don't think Zach is the guy that you look at and go, there it is. I think you're better off going and finding that other piece. And if you are going to go and try to get that, like, not superstar, but like maybe all-star level that can come in and really make an impact, I think you're better off being patient, again, for a guy like a Pascal Siakam, somebody like that. Or do you maybe go get an OG Anunoby? I would almost argue they're better off going and trying to get like a Jeremy Grant than a Zach Lavine. Right? Like, if you're going to, the salaries are going to have to match regardless. And I also think Jeremy Grant would be cheaper. And I think he provides you more of what you need, more size, ability to rebound. He can go get you 20 plus a night. He can defend multiple positions. Right? I almost feel like that would be better for Sacramento than to go get a guy like Zach Lavine. I just think Zach Lavine is kind of the opposite of what you need. You don't need more scoring. right? You need more well-roundedness. You need more defense. You need guys that can, yes, take a workload off of De'Aaron Fox, off of Sabonis. If Sabonis has a bad playoff game, you got another guy that you can rely on that can hopefully kind of step up in that moment, right? Like if you could turn Harrison Barnes into like a Jeremy Grant or, Pascal Siakam or something like that. I would rather go with like a Pascal, but if you can go do something like that, I think that would be much more impactful for Sacramento, especially in the long run, than getting a guy like Zach Lavine. Those are my thoughts and opinions, and as always, I pass the question on to you. Let me know yours down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Do you think that they should stay away from Zach Lavine? Do you think, no, like Zach Lavine would be great, like he's a guy that they absolutely have to get? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot, lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.